reptilian shapeshifters are behind ISIS, the Federal Reserve and Sesame Street. This is the False Flag Nation podcast, with your hosts, Prometheus and William Revere.
And we're back. Welcome back, folks. This is another episode of False Flag Nation, where we dive into conspiracy theories, hidden history, paranormal, and all things unusual. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Revere. Can you hear me there? And I am Prometheus. This week, we're going to be delving into something a little bit different. I thought because Halloween is coming up, we're going to try something a little bit different than all this political stuff we've been talking about last few weeks. So this week we're going to be exploring the legacy of the Amityville Horror, the incident in Amityville, Long Island that inspired the horror movie franchise, the book, and just really trying to figure out what the hell was going on there and whether or not the whole thing may have been a hoax, or there were bits and pieces that were exaggerated. But when you start delving into this, it's actually a really interesting story. And since, Will, you are an expert on all things occult, religion related, why don't you take this away for us? How do we start to tackle this?
Sure. Yeah, and like you said, I think we've been hitting some heavy topics of late. So
yeah,
this is a good little switch up.
Yeah,
being that it's October and it's Halloween, I think this is a very fitting podcast.
Yeah. Do something a little more lighthearted. I guess it's telling that talking about demonically haunted houses more lighthearted than what we've been talking about, but
than American politics. Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, let's start at the beginning. Why don't we?
Yeah.
So I think most of our viewers are familiar with the Amityville Horror story, and
for the few people that might not be, could you give like a Cliff Notes version of what happened there?
Real Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Long Island, haunted house. Family moves in to a home that there had been a murder in a year before. The family moves in. They got nice kids, and they're struck with a lot of paranormal activity. There's figures showing up in the window. There's traditional signs of oppression and possession in the house.
What's the difference between oppression and possession?
Okay, so oppression would be physical attacks. It would be manifestations in the home, poltergeist activity.
I get like things moving around and stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I get you. Okay.
So that's haunted house stuff.
Sure.
Possession is a person is physically and mentally controlled by whatever spirit it is, demon, ghost, whatever you want to call it. So that's the difference between oppression and possession.
Sure. Wow. Oh, I learned something new today.
In any event, you have this family that moves into the house, and it's the house with the eyes that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah.
And 28 days later, less than a month, they leave the house completely after being physically attacked, tormented for a month. The children are terrified. There's basically there's rumors of blood coming down the walls. There's black slime coming up in the toilets. It's kind of bizarre. And they had a priest go and visit the house, and he was attacked as well. So a lot of these things have been portrayed in the film and in the book, which were ultra popular. But there is some truth to them, and we're here basically trying to figure out what the hell happened there. So that's basically the Cliff Notes version. There's a haunted house. Family moves in. Less than a month later, they leave due to the paranormal activity there.
And was this linked in any way to the murder or murders that had happened before they moved in? This family, the Lutz family, is that their name?
Yeah, George and Kathy.
And that's the family that like the movie and the book are based on.
That's correct. So prior to them moving in, Ronald DeFeo in 1974, the DeFeo family bought the house on Long Island, and they had 3 or 4 kids.
Okay.
And ultimately what happened is Ronald DeFeo enters his home on November 13th, and supposedly he murdered his entire family. They were all shot in the middle of the night around 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And the children died, and both parents died.
So this is their eldest son.
That's correct. He was 23 at the time. I believe. So that is the precursor. That's basically what happened prior to the Lutz family moving in. So there's all sorts of theories that there was some sort of paranormal activity going around because of that event that took place. Now, what makes things interesting is, and why this was turned into such a big deal, is because during the trial of Ronald DeFeo, one of the biggest defense claims that he makes is that, and his defense team actually allowed him to go through with this. Ronald DeFeo said that he heard voices telling him that he needed to kill everybody in the house to protect himself. So
that was like he did an insanity plea, and he was saying like, I heard voices that commanded me to.
Right. However, Ronald DeFeo, at least at the time, was absolutely convinced that he was not making this up. He wasn't high on drugs, even though he was an avid drug user. He was claiming that he was, not drunk, not high or anything, and that he heard voices continually telling him that he needed to kill his family. So it was interesting that his defense team actually used that in the case.
Did they know what kind of drugs he was taking? Like, because I saw that documentary you sent me about this. It said he was doing heroin a lot.
Heroin and LSD.
LSD. If
Which
he's doing something psychedelic, that would possibly seeing like the Cheshire Cat outside, hanging in a tree outside his window.
Exactly.
Why are your parents still alive? Did we not discuss this?
So anyway, you have this Ronald DeFeo guy, and he murders his entire family. Yeah. And that's 1974.
Okay.
That's basically the timeline. Now.
And he went away for that, right?
He is still serving 6 life in prison terms.
Shit. All right, so he's still in jail. He's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Wow.
And he has changed his story multiple times.
So what is he saying now?
Now he's claimed that in the beginning that he heard voices.
Yeah.
Then he went back and said that there may or may not have been a second person involved in the shooting. Yet there's no evidence involved that there was.
See, that's what was weird to me about this too, because we looked at the that the documentary you sent me and his defense attorney pointed this out too, is that everyone in the house was shot, and they were like laying down, and they were shot with like a rifle, like a 22 or something. And how could he have done that to like 6 people without like
waking
the first
up the
time?
neighbors?
Yeah, the first time that gun goes off, it's gonna wake up everybody in the house. So how
Exactly.
could he have done that? And like there were no signs that they had tried to get away or resist or anything like that. So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't make sense that one person could have done that.
That's one of the aspects that the paranormal supporters of this case like to see. And they say, well, how could this have been done? And they figure that there was some sort of involvement of, a demonic spirit or something like that. But it's true, because if you fire, I think it was a Marlin 336 or something like that, which is a loud hunting rifle. If you fire that, even inside a house in the middle of the night, not only are all the occupants in the house going to hear it, but the fucking neighbors are going to hear it probably 2 blocks down.
Yeah, the neighbors didn't hear this or anything. This is like a suburban neighborhood. All the houses are pretty close together and everything.
Right. And I've actually had the pleasure to drive by the house multiple times.
Really?
Yeah, I've spent some time on Long Island, so I'm aware of exactly where the house is, and it's stunningly close to the other houses around it. So, again, anybody who's been near a gun that fires, you know how fucking loud it is. So,
does it have those big spooky eyes, like looking down?
No, they got rid of those.
Okay. Now I gotta ask, the one of their DeFeo's defenses, like his initial one, well, it was a combination of the insanity plea and when his original statement when he was arrested, from what I saw, was that his family's car dealership was like a front company for the mob or something, for the mafia in New York, and his explanation for why they had all been killed was that they had, their job was to launder money or dispose of weapons and stuff that had been used in crime scenes, and they had some sort of falling out with the mob, and they took out the family as a result of that beef, which, that could potentially explain multiple shooters showing up. So it's something that sounds logical, but they seems like they found the murder weapon in his room.
Right.
So it's just, there's so many aspects to this, like these loose ends, or if it seems like you're going in the right direction and then you hit a dead end, and then there's another promising direction and another dead end, and it's so inconclusive.
And you hit it right. You hit the nail on the head right there too, because all of them were killed with the same gun. All of them were killed within minutes of each other, and they weren't drugged or anything. So how could it have been done by one person?
Well, there was, I do remember in like some of the links you sent me about this, one of the investigators claims he found gunshot residue on the sister's clothing. I mean, like dispersed in such a way that like she had fired a gun.
Right.
So they thought she might have been an accomplice, and then he got rid of her afterward.
Right, but then I remember seeing that.
I cut you off there. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I remember seeing that too, but then she was face down on the bed as well. But it didn't seem like there was any post-mortem movement. That's what I was concerned about with that theory. In any event, there's something crazy going on, and this dude, whether he or an accomplice or something, Ronald DeFeo is legally responsible for the death of all those people.
Yeah.
So now that's basically the backstory.
So now we come to the Lutz family.
The Lutz family, a little over a year later, December 1975, George and Kathleen Lutz buy the house.
Yeah.
And this is a big house. It's a 6-bedroom house, and it's right on the canal in Long Island, so it's right near the water.
Okay.
So they get it for $80,000, which is a bargain then.
You want to save some money, go to a police auction, buy a murder house, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
Jesus.
The house sold for $1 million in 2005, I believe.
Well, that was in the middle of the housing bubble, but still, like, that shows you how much that house's value went down because people didn't want to buy it. Like, fuck, $80,000 for a 6-bedroom house, and that's not a cheap area either. Like,
no, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So anyway, George and Kathleen Lutz buy the house, and within a couple of days, they notice very odd things happening. Like I said before, there was a stench from not only the basement, but the second floor. And they couldn't explain it. There was nothing up there. They checked for squirrels. They checked for everything else.
Yeah.
There was a stench of rotting and decaying flesh.
Ew.
That was odd.
Ew.
So much so, that they invited a family friend who was a priest to come over and bless the house, especially after they knew what happened there.
What if it was just a septic tank and the priest is just like,
well, that's what I thought,
pinching his nose the whole time?
Exactly. There's a big pile of shit in the
But so they have the priest there.
So they have the priest. Yeah. This is one of the famous scenes in the movie. The priest shows up, and supposedly it's true, according to interviews with George Lutz and Kathleen Lutz. The priest shows up, and he leaves the house quickly. He doesn't want any part of it, and he basically says, stay off the second floor, especially the second floor bedroom. And he said, the house is clean. I'm leaving. And that kind of set George and Kathleen off, because they're like, why did he just leave? And why did he give us this like ominous message to stay away from the second floor? The activity continues. Their youngest daughter, Missy, claims that she has this friend named Jody, which is like the ultimate terrifying thing if you have like a kid.
Yeah.
They always see weird shit, and like you can't.
Yeah, I know. It's always the weird, like, he's young enough that you're like, is it autism? I don't know. Let's see. And they're always the first one to sense the spirit in the house. Like,
exactly. They're like staring into mirrors and shit. It's
the chair rocking by itself there.
Exactly. So little Missy claims that she sees her imaginary friend Jody, who she describes as a pig with glowing red eyes.
A little pig, like, Jody.
Now, if that's not fucking terrifying, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's I wasn't. That's the part where I started to get a little creeped out. Like, everything up to that point, I was like, yeah, right. Okay. I'm like, wait, glowing eye pig demons. I like that. Stop this now. So what happened then?
So then, George Lutz would wake up, the father, he would wake up around 3 a.m. every morning. And this was supposedly the time of the DeFeo murders. And it's also the demonic witching hour, which is 3 a.m., which is supposedly the opposite time of when Jesus died on the cross.
It's like an inversion, like an upside down thing. Okay.
Exactly. So he keeps waking up at 3 a.m. The family is abused. They wake up with red welts on their chest, on their heads, and Kathy Lutz is reportedly seen levitating in a chair multiple times by people in the family, and she doesn't remember anything.
I'd be so fucking out of there the first time I saw that.
Exactly. Wouldn't you just fucking leave?
I would push my family out of the way and run to the car and
exactly. Like that.
Fuck this.
Stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, so then There's doors opening. It's traditional poltergeist, traditional haunted activity.
Yeah.
Knocks in the middle of the night, scratching. And another freaky thing that George claims to have seen is that he saw his wife in the middle of the night get up for a glass of water. And when she came back, she transformed into a older woman with missing teeth, and her hair was all wrinkly and everything. There was saliva dripping out of her mouth. And George claims that he saw an older version of Kathy. So that was just, imagine seeing that, waking up at 3 a.m. and seeing your wife, 50 years older, drooling in front of you. Probably kind of terrifying.
It's like standing, looming over him on the bed. Maybe she was like little spooning him. Then suddenly her head turns completely around.
Yeah.
I've fallen and I can't get up. The jaw detaches.
One of the other freaky scenes that is depicted in the movie, too, is that George Lutz claims he hears strange noises like a marching band in the basement. So he claims that multiple times in interviews, and it's also, like I said, depicted in the movie.
Yeah,
so he would go down to the basement and he would see the piano playing on its own. He would hear drums and cymbals and brass instruments, yet there's none in the house. And then he would go down there and there would be nothing.
So what was the explanation for that?
There was no explanation.
So
he's saying that there was some sort of spirit manifestation going on. So
it's the hauntings of a fife and drum corps in the 1700s, where the fife master molested the drum boys or something like.
Yeah. He was playing the skin flute in the basement.
Yeah. The youth skin flutist spirits still hover over the land long before the foundations of the house were laid down.
So you have all this activity going on, and then they also reportedly have swarms of flies in the house, even though it's the middle of winter, which is very odd because flies are usually around in the
remember that scene from
summer.
The movie. Yeah. So, like, eventually, unless there's some climactic event that I'm missing, eventually they fled the house.
Yes.
And then this is where it seems like a lot of fuckery starts to happen, because they meet with the attorney that, like the first person they go to. I don't know if they went to the cops first. That's what I would do. Cops or a priest, but from what I recall, the first person they went to was the defense attorney that represented DeFeo.
Right, William Weber.
Yeah.
Now they go to the Lutz family goes to him, and the original story is that they couldn't live with themselves knowing that Ronald DeFeo was in prison for killing his family, and without trying to help him, because they believe that whatever was tormenting them had prompted him to kill his family.
So they're like, they're like, we at least got to let him know that this happened to us, because this could have played a factor.
Exactly.
In that. Okay.
So they go to his defense, Ronald DeFeo's lawyer, Mr. Weber, and Mr. Weber not only contacts DeFeo, but he starts brainstorming that, holy shit, this is a great story, if nothing else, and how can I profit from this? So,
see, this is where it starts to get weird. Like that's the first thing this guy thinks to himself, this lawyer, and it sounds like they went along with it, like they were into the idea.
Yeah, and that's shady to begin with, but what gets even more shady is that, so you've got this William Weber guy, and he gets along with a book team And they say, we're going to write this whole story down, and we're going to have a author ghost write this story.
Yeah.
And during the process of that, the Lutz family actually breaks the contract and goes with another author, and that author actually ends up writing the book, which came out prior to the film.
Yeah.
And that team gets along with the Hollywood producers, and the Lutz family sells the rights to the Hollywood producers, and then this whole series is born, which there's Amityville 1, 2, 3, there's like tons of remakes.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, was this whole thing made up for a profit?
See, that's the thing, like, if these people were as traumatized as they claimed they were when they ran out of the house, like abandoning all their stuff behind, like lost a fortune on the buying the house and furnishing it and everything, and they just ran away from it and never returned to the house. That behavior is not consistent with what they did afterwards. And they're like getting book deals and like meeting with screenwriters in Hollywood and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? You'd think they would they would just like want to do anything at all to forget that and move on with their lives. Like, we've seen that show Paranormal Witness.
Right.
I can't remember the network it's on, but like a lot of those stories, I think at least some of those stories are legit. Like, those people look legitimately like terrified recalling what happened to them, and they're not like those stories. That's the first time you're hearing them. Like, those people aren't like trying to use this as a springboard to build an acting career or turn what happened to them into a brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But that is what's going on with the Amityville situation.
Yeah, and with that said, the only thing that convinces me that there was some level of paranormal activity going on in this house is the involvement of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which they got involved in 1976, and it was actually a huge media coverage involved in that too. They actually sent over Channel 5 News in New York sent over 3 investigators, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are demonologists and very well-known, respected paranormal investigators.
Yeah, they're based in Connecticut, and I think they're the people that own that Raggedy Ann doll, the Annabelle doll.
Yes, the Annabelle doll.
God damn, that is terrifying.
Yeah, that's an interesting story too.
Yeah,
equally terrifying.
That's a legitimately like freaky, ridiculous thing. Like, it's behind like a glass counter.
Yes.
A glass container, and there's a sign saying "Do not touch under any or open under any circumstances." Right. And not to get too off track here, I remember reading a story that there was some asshole at the museum, like that. Like, apparently their house is like a little museum
in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah, where they keep this stuff. And someone started tapping on the glass, just like, "What are you gonna do? Come after me?" And then they got in a car accident and died on the way home from, like, that day they left the museum. They wrapped their car around a tree or something.
I think he was on a motorcycle or something, but yeah, I remember that story.
Jeez.
But that's fucked up too.
Yeah, so those people came down and they basically endorsed the Lutz's story.
Right. And Lorraine Warren, there's a quote where she said something to the effect of that's the closest to hell that she's ever experienced, and she never wanted to go back. And
wow,
there was definitely something going on there. And during the investigation, her husband Ed was attacked apparently and thrown down to the floor, and there were a couple other psychic and clairvoyants there.
Well,
and all of them were basically on the same page that there was something fucked up going on there.
Yeah. Well, I remember in the interview with the news anchor who was there covering it, he was like, we didn't see anything. We were just kind of, I mean, it was disturbing because we were in the room with them when they were having this breakdown. That was kind of upsetting to be around that. But they were taking pictures and there was just nothing. And then there's one photo where there's this creepy, very clearly there's a photo of like a creepy little boy with glowing eyes sticking his head around.
Right by the stairs.
Door. Yeah, like overlooking the stairs.
Yeah, we should put that picture up.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that. It's all over the internet, but yeah, that's very creepy.
I'll get that up. But it's like, I don't know, what does your gut tell you here? Because I just, there's so many red flags with this story, and yet it feels like there's, it feels like there's something going on here.
I think that, and again, maybe this is putting too much faith in the Warrens, but I believe them. I believe what they've done. They seem to have a very trustworthy.
Trustworthy faces.
I guess so, and they're very experienced, and they're actually. I know we don't like to associate with the Vatican often, but they're closely involved with the Vatican, and they're considered to be experts in the field. So
they're consultants for the Vatican.
Exactly.
So right. Huh. Okay.
Take that however you will.
Interesting.
But I think that there is and there definitely was something going on there. Did it lead to Ronald DeFeo killing his family? Possibly. Did something happen to the Lutz family? I think so. I think it's kind of odd for them to completely make this up, and to go with it for so many years. And
I mean, it's possible. There's some truth to it, and I think they admitted later that they exaggerated parts of it. Like in the book and the movie and stuff. I mean, the movies almost always exaggerate in a situation like this, but that sometimes people will start telling a lie to the media for some reason. They just want attention, or they're trying to get money, and they become so invested in the lie, and they tell it over and over and over again that they dig themselves into this hole and they can't get out because they're so invested in this lie that their whole world collapses if they turn around and say it isn't true. So that it's possible something like that happened and it just spiraled out of control and it just kind of took on a life of its own there. But I don't know.
That's what I was going to say. I think there was at some point some truth to it. Something happened there and it was genuine. But then, at some point they lost their grounding and they lost connection to their story. I mean, they literally sold the rights to that story over to people. And then who knows what happens after that.
Yeah,
so
see, that's what bothers me. That's not consistent with someone with people who were traumatized by this. And me, I think at least one of them is dead. The Lutzes. No, I think the wife's dead.
I think she is dead too.
They might both be dead, but they had 3 kids with them. Has anyone interviewed the kids about this?
Yes, there is an interview with the kids.
And what did they say?
There's a documentary that came out last year with the youngest brother, I believe, the youngest son.
Okay.
And he basically he describes how he hated his father.
Yeah.
And he describes how there was odd activity in the house, but there was no, green slime coming down the walls. There was no blood. The red room in the basement was basically something that they did themselves. That was a big thing in the movie.
Hold on a second. Never mind. Go ahead.
And
sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. And he believes that the story was taken out of context and that a lot of people saw it as a money-making opportunity and grabbed onto it as best they could.
So
and
like
it got taken out of their control.
So like it was out of their hands once
exactly.
they went to...
Exactly. So
I get you.
In any event, he said that there was something that happened there, and he believes that the Warrens were genuine with what they found, but he thinks that his parents got swept up in the media coverage and kind of lost their way. So
Crazy.
Even with that happening, and William Weber, there's a quote of him saying that the whole Amityville Horror story was created and it was born over multiple bottles of wine. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this was completely a money-making hoax. But like I said before, my final conclusion is that if the Warrens were involved, then there has to be a sliver of truth to this story.
Damn. I don't know, man. My gut is telling me... Yeah, it's possible there's some truth to this, but my gut's telling me this is like 80% made up. Like their story is like 80% bullshit.
That could be.
I mean, the stuff with the DeFeos, that absolutely happened. I think that went down more or less the way the prosecution argued. But well, no. No, I don't know what I'm thinking here. Sorry, I'm a little tired. That, I think, there was definitely something weird going on there, because it just doesn't make sense the way the conventional explanation for how those people were killed. Like either there were more people there, or maybe the spirits prevented them from waking up.
Right.
Like, and while he went room to room popping people away. You remember how Mr. Lutz apparently was paralyzed in bed, whether he like the demon was holding him there.
Yep.
While it was rattling his kid's bed around. Maybe that same thing happened when DeFeo
he went around shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could
or
be.
He had sleep paralysis and was making the whole thing up. We don't know.
Now that's an interesting subject too.
Yeah.
We ought to do a podcast on that.
Yeah, sleep paralysis. That's happened to me a couple times. It's weird. It's really fucking weird.
You sure you didn't take some drugs or something like that?
No.
Have a rendezvous with a strange man?
No. No, Will. That's not what happened here. That is not something I will divulge on the air. But no, it happened in college. Actually, it was really weird because I actually knew what was happening because I knew about sleep paralysis, and I was like, oh, this is sleep paralysis, and I was like semi-dreaming, semi-awake, and I was in like a condo with like 7 people. It was like a townhouse, a garden apartment, and I could hear my roommates out in the kitchen, like drinking and laughing and stuff, and I was like, and you had to like will yourself to wake up. Like it's like this. It's like bursting through a sheet of saran wrap. You're just like, and then you wake up. It's so fucking
I've never
strange.
experienced that.
Oh, dude, you should. You should. Well, I don't know why I'm recommending that to someone. Like, it's cool, but it's just to know what it's like. I think you should. It's kind of like a lucid dream. Lucid dreams are cool.
So,
but sleep paralysis.
Are more people prone to it than others, or no?
Sleep paralysis?
Yeah. Or does it just happen?
I think some people are probably more prone to it. I think to me, it's only happened like 3 times in my life. But I think there's some people that happens too regularly, and that probably freaks them out a lot. And that was probably an explanation for like, or demons were used as an explanation for that in like the Middle Ages. So they thought,
definitely.
Yeah, because there are these old paintings of like this fat, like pot-bellied little ass demon thing sitting on someone's chest in bed. and they think that's what it was trying to portray, was someone suffering from sleep paralysis, and that was the explanation people had for that back then, because they didn't know how the brain worked or anything like that.
Right, they blame it on a demon or something, an incubus or a succubus.
Yeah, that's how they explain the dirty sheets in the morning there.
Exactly.
It wasn't me, mother. It was the succubus there.
It was so much easier living back then.
Yeah, you could explain away so much back then. I didn't want to bugger the farmhand, mother. The demon made me do it. But any further thoughts on this, Will? It seems like this has raised more questions than answers. No matter how, particularly the DeFeo aspect of this.
I think, like I said before, there is an element of truth to it. I think that it's been spiraled out of proportion, and there's definitely some lies and some hoaxes involved. But that's just what happens when Hollywood gets involved too. So we'll probably never find out what happens.
Yeah. Anytime Hollywood gets involved, you're going to get taken for a ride there. This whole thing's going to, like we were said earlier, it's going to completely take on a life of its own, and it'll bear a vague, superficial resemblance to whatever actually happened.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
All right. Well, yeah, this was good. I like this. We should do more like ghost, paranormal type stuff. Yeah,
I think we want to try and do another Halloween one coming up in the next couple days.
Yeah, definitely. This is good. Yeah.
There's the Dudley Town in Connecticut.
Oh, that's a
very
freaky
interesting story.
That's a really freaky story.
So, I think if you guys are interested in that, I think we're definitely going to be covering that, and we're actually going to be able to try and get some footage of that as well, because I'm going to be in the area.
You want to go ahead and do that? You're certainly welcome to.
We can at least go to the road that leads to the old Dudleyville.
Yeah, that's as close as I'm getting there. I'm not going into goddamn.
But in any event,
Satan-possessed pilgrim village with.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
We'll see what we can do for you guys, but yeah, we'll definitely have at least another one of these Halloween-themed paranormal episodes coming out within the next week for All Hallows Eve 2015. Anything else to add, Will?
That's it. That's all I got. Until next time, adios.
Yep, good to hear. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, like us on Facebook. Again, we are on Twitter now. Just launched that last week. It's been sending a lot of people over to the podcast. Those of you who discovered the show through Twitter, welcome. Glad to have you here. And we're going to be coming out with more cool shit over the course of the next week. So stay tuned.